And closing out the prelims here, we got the return of Chris Weidman. He's going to be taking on Brad Tavares. And after one of the nastiest injuries in UFC history, Weidman is making what many would call a miraculous return to competition. His leg was broken severely, and this is his first fight in almost 2.5 years. At his age, with the damage he's taken, it's difficult to imagine he comes back the same. He was already fading before the injury, so how he's going to look on Saturday is really question mark. I will say physically, Weidman looks good in shape on his IG. I watched his Polaris grappling fight. He looked like he was in shape, strong in that fight. And you can never underestimate the heart of a champion, man. The fact that Weidman has done the work to come back, you have to respect that regardless of the outcome. Brad Tavares, just like Weidman, he's a grizzled veteran, man. Tavares has actually been in the UFC longer than Chris Weidman. He made his debut in the UFC in 2010. He was one of the first prospects post Randy Couture to carry that flag for Extreme Couture, which has become arguably the best gym in martial arts today. And Tavares hasn't reached the heights Chris Weidman has, but he's still 14-8 in 22 UFC fights. He's put in work. His last match against Bruno Silva, he was knocked out, and it was arguably an early stoppage, so it wasn't a devastating finish, but the fight was only a little less than 4 months ago, and Tavares sustained a lot of damage, so that is something to think about. But Tavares has lost 2 fights in a row. It's been over 3 years since he's gotten a win in the UFC, and Saturday night he's a big favorite, and it's a good chance for him to get his hand raised again. When you look at Brad Tavares' style, he's a pretty basic fighter. On the feet, he likes to throw the jabs, the leg kicks, and fast straight jabs. He has good timing with the low kicks. You'll mix in some front kicks up the middle. Sometimes you'll throw some big right hooks or right crosses, but most of the time he's just playing that long game, touching from the outside, scoring points. In the pocket, he will slip and rip, but I doubt Weidman is going to play that game with him. And Tavares may even be hesitant to exchange in the pocket too after getting knocked out, exchanging with Bruno Silva. And in Tavares' entire UFC career, and I think this is a reason why the UFC pinned Weidman against him, and it's a good matchup, is he only has 2 finishes in his whole career. He's really tough. He keeps a high guard. He doesn't move his head, and he's there to be hit. And he has a strong chin, but he's also been put out 4 times, including in his last fight. The damage is starting to add up. He's getting dropped more often. He's getting cut open. 2 out of his last 3 fights, he's had to fight through a crimson mask. And I feel like, him only having 2 finishes in his entire UFC career is kind of an indicator that he doesn't have that power to knock Weidman out. I mean, unless Weidman's leg is so compromised that a couple leg kicks is going to end it, it's probably going to, end up going long. And Tavares does come in shape. He brings the volume. But in this fight, you know what Tavares has to be ready for, and that's the stuff, the takedowns. He has 80% takedown defense, and all those guys at Extreme Couture usually are very difficult to take down. And Tavares had some pretty good showings against Antonio Carlos Jr. and Omari Akhmedov where he defended a lot of takedowns, but Akhmedov still took him down 5 times. And Chris Weidman is, my opinion, by far the best wrestler-grappler combination that Tavares has ever fought. I mean, Yoel Romero is really the only high-level wrestler that Tavares has faced in his UFC run, and Yoel took Tavares down 7 times. Brad Tavares has good takedown defense, good balance, but I do think Weidman with his size, his chain wrestling, could hold Tavares against the cage, could get him down a few times, and we're going to have to see how that game plays out. But when you look at Chris Weidman, southpaw, he has one of the best single legs in MMA history, and on top of the single leg, he could chain wrestle. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a huge guy for 185, and he's a load to deal with. I mean, that's why he became world champion. His Achilles heel in his later career has been his chin. He's been knocked out brutally a few times. He's suffered multiple knockout losses in a row. And to compound that, then he suffered one of the worst leg breaks in UFC history as well. So all that makes Weidman's durability an extreme question mark red flag. Luckily for Weidman, though, he's in there, like I said, with a soft puncher. I think the leg kicks are what Weidman really has to be more aware of. On the feet, I would say Weidman is the more mobile of the two. He's the much heavier hitter, and he likes to use evasive footwork, feints, throw the jab, and he has power kicks if he comes back with the same kind of kicking game that he used to. He has a big right hand with heat, and I feel like if someone's going to knock someone out with punches or even knock someone out in general, I think the likelihood is higher for on the Weidman side. But Weidman's going to come back, and he's going to grapple. I mean, I watched him grapple Pelorus 23 earlier this year, and he looked decent enough. It's really kind of hard to say. But I think if he comes back, even 50% of his former self, and I'm talking about the self that we saw fight Omari Akhmedov, he could win this fight. I mean, I just don't like Brad Tavares. To me, it's like he doesn't necessarily do anything phenomenal. Like, the guy doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. He doesn't have power. He doesn't have the greatest striking. He doesn't have the greatest durability. He doesn't have the greatest cardio. He does have good output, good leg kicks, which are going to be something that Weidman has to be aware of. But, man, I mean, if you're giving anyone to Weidman to come back and get the victory, I think Tavares is a great guy to give him, man. I think Weidman is undefeated in decisions. And, I mean, I think I'm going to walk the lonely road on this one. I don't think many people are going to be going with me, but I'm going to pick Chris Weidman to win this one via decision. I think he's going to be able to get his grappling going, hold him against the cage, take him down a few times. I think the striking is going to be a lot more competitive than people think. I think he could bust Tavares up and, make him bloody. And I feel like this is a huge pivotal fight for Weidman, not only, as a fighter, but as a man. I think he wants to come back, get the win, and kind of prove something to the world, prove something to himself. And another thing is, look at the main event. You like Aljo Sterling, that guy, they've been best friends for a long time. Not best friends, I don't know that, but they've been, really close training partners. And he has the whole crew there with him, man. His whole team. It's going to be good vibes, nostalgia going. And give me Chris Weidman. I mean, maybe it's going to look like a terrible pick, and Tavares is going to get his first knockout win since like 2015 or his second one since 2010 and beat Chris Weidman. But man, I feel like Chris Weidman at the numbers that he's at can get the win here. So I'm going with Chris Weidman. I know it's kind of a crazy pick, but give me Chris Weidman to win this fight via decision.